Well, everybody, how's it going? We just had the best May ever. Well, not ever, I guess. In 13 years. It seems like ever. And, well, now we're on to June. Last month of Q2. And all trading involves a substantial risk of loss. Past performance not necessarily indicative of future results. This presentation intended to be informational, educational, fun, and entertaining, not a recommendation to be buying or selling any financial instrument. If you desire personal financial advice, hire and consult a financial advisor. And welcome to June. So here we have the first full week. This is the first week of June. There's not a lot coming in here economic news-wise. We've got some ISM that might move the market today. We've got Fed Chair Powell speaking. He is not. He has one more year left on his term. I saw the internet ablaze speculating that he was going to step down today. I don't think that's happening. Just don't. We have JOLTS jobs tomorrow after the market opens. We've got non-farm employment change on Wednesday. Then we have, normal unemployment on Thursday. There's just not really a lot happening this week economic news-wise. And we get the normal monthly jobs and unemployment rate, non-farm jobs report. See how many jobs we added and declined, and the real story is in what they revise the last several months. Welcome, everybody. So if you missed out on May, that was a crazy, like I said, the strongest May we've had in 13 years. Of course, it's not going to load today. Beautiful. I may have to just kill the browser. This is not... Not gonna work for me. Let's kill that. Reload. Let's see what we can do here. Let's see if I pop this back up. Get something cooking here. Looks like TradingView installed some updatey stuff. Pop this back up. And there we go. More responsive. So when we look at this on the monthly basis, although we did chop, like half the month we just chopped, right? Strongest month, May, it's all subjective, right? We did this big run, but then we sat for half a month. So if you've been here trading, you're like, wait a minute, strongest May in 13 years. It's because when you look at that monthly bar, look at that baby, big, strong sucker, biggest one we've had in 13 years. But when you actually get down in the weeds, not all that rosy. We kind of, look at that. We basically spent from the 14th through the end of the month just chopping, chop fest, and rough stuff. This baby, MAGS, which is the Magnificent 7 ETF here. If you didn't know this existed, you just go buy it. If you want to get exposure to the Magnificent 7, here you go. Look at that monthly chart right there. That was the strongest month since this. This is a misnomer, but since this has been around, that was the bestest month right there. Now, you would have had to buy down here to catch it, because if you bought up here, well, you're still underwater. And when we look at this, looking at the monthly bars, this only goes back to November 2023. So this hasn't even been around that long. So saying it's the best month ever, it's kind of, gilding things just a little bit, so to speak. So welcome all my channel members like Rob, Craig, Don, Ivan, Will, Sergio, Jerry, Ed, Dan, Cliff, General Rush, Diane, Mad, Mark, Gary, Kevin, Jason, Ted, Frank, B, Terry, Joseph, Rongamer, Mary. Welcome everybody to the show. Where are we going from here? That's what everybody really wants to know, right? How do we make money today? Where are we going from here? What's cooking next? Looking at NASDAQ, we were just talking about MAGS Mag 7. So NASDAQ, look, I mean, that's, we kind of did this opposite, right? Usually it bleeds down beginning and when we pop at the end of May. Instead, we got the pop and the bleed down, or the pop and a stop. So coming into June, not better news for you, unfortunately. It looks like historically, over the last 20 years, we get some chop in June. Can't say that we might not get a pullback. All right, we've been talking about a pullback. We've been looking at that chop the last 2 weeks, and obviously we hit a wall with the rally in the S&P. And let me see, where is it? I thought I had all the seasonality charts up, but apparently I don't. I can pull the S&P one here. Oh, cool. You're not going to do that, huh? Pop it out. Here's the S&P one. Let's just pop it over. Same window. Make it bigger. Come on. There we go. So looking at June, again, this is kind of opposite, right? We rallied early May and, strongest one in 13 years, but this goes back 20 years. So usually we get a little pop at the end of May, but instead we kind of chopped at the end of May. Could be not really awesome heading into June here. That's what that kind of looks like. Not really big trending. Now, maybe it's opposite day, right? Maybe we get a big drop first and then we come back at the end of June. So can't really say for sure which way this is going to roll, but it is 20-year history. And let's grab this other one and look at the volatility index. Oh, I love how it's changing the wrong window that I'm not even focused on. So usually coming into, this actually does look like what we kind of experienced. A drop off in volatility heading into May, at the end of May, and then a ramp in volatility heading into mid-June, a little bit of chop, and then we drop out into July. So this is volatility index, is basically VIX right here. So seasonality-wise, we could see a little bit of chop. A little bit of chop. So we're looking at across the indexes. Jumping over to VIX. Come on, baby. Jump on the right chart. VIX, we did see that little bitty pop there like a week ago. And no continuation so far. But this is, so I caution you here. This is a move up, higher low. That sets up for a potential another round of a pop, which I've kind of been thinking we might see. We could get this little baby pop right up in here, right in that zone. So that's something to watch out for right there in the coming days, especially if we get a bigger pullback take hold in the market. We might see VIX pop. Ways you can play that with leverage ETFs like UVXY. If you thought that was going to run, the VXX, another way. And if you think it's not going to run, SVXY might be the way to play. That one goes down. I mean, this one goes up when VIX goes down. So if you expect lower volatility, but this one, this has been kind of interesting, right? Like we saw this kind of parallel the S&P, came up back to this level and then just held steady in that pretty tight zone right there. Not really popping, not really following the normal patterns here. We saw a big drop, hold, big drop. Is this done correcting for VIX, or are we going to see more downside on the short VIX right here? Now, rolling back, anybody that's missed this conversation before, rolling all the way back to COVID and that big drop that we had in this during COVID, where VIX absolutely crushed everything. Every time we've gotten this dip where we pull back 15 to 20%, we very quickly, within a month or so, have recovered. We did that over and over and over, like 20 something times. And then all of a sudden, starting last summer, we got that big drop and then we didn't recover. And then we came into early this year and we got another big drop and we still didn't recover. So something fishy. Maybe it was the split. Change the dynamics here. Change their leverage dynamics, and it's not able to rally back nearly as fast as it was. It's kind of interesting that, and that's just a regular split. It's not a reverse split. That was just a regular old split. Now back here somewhere they did reverse split it right there. So they do it. They mess with this one both ways. Got to be careful. Got to be careful, as always. Let's pop back up in the chat so I can see it. And look at the S&P. And we just kind of held into the end of the month there. Held. Still potentially expect this to get some continuation lower. Friday was a wicked day for a lot of people. As we just kind of churned, we burned off more options. My XSP position burned off. Right, that I had right for the end of the month, and just kind of holding. This could potentially be an initial move down. Has a 5-wave structure. This has a little bit of an unclear pattern here. This looks like an A wave. This triangle-y thing looks somewhat like a B wave, which opens the door for us to potentially make a C wave higher that could potentially exceed that high. Could potentially. And still set us up for a correction down. This is the unclear part about what we have cooking here in this chart. Now, if we kind of expand out and look at what we've done here, this move up, this correction, see, this could put it up in this vicinity for the top of the B wave. This could still be a B, cannot be a 2. So if this is a B, why do I say that? It's because that's 1, 2, potentially a 3 third wave move right there. This is the 0 point, so this can be an A. At this point, if we do that, it cannot be a 2, because 2 cannot exceed the 0 point. All right, so that, even though that was a 5 down, kind of locks it into being an A. So we'd lock it into being a B, and then we might get a vicious 5 down for a C, at which point that was a 3-wave correction. We might be setting up for that new all-time high that I've been talking about for a while. So we have this potential resistance zone right here that we could hit. Now this could maintain a 0 point, a 1, as long as we maintain a lower high. That can maintain a 2, and we could get a big 3, at which we kind of open up the door for that bigger, nastier downside potential sooner rather than later. So threading the needle a little bit here. And we can still do a 3-wave down and not make a higher high too. So we don't have to go up there and make that C. It's not the most clear at the moment. And the futures didn't really help provide any clarity either. We've got this move down, we've got this retrace, we've got this move down, and blase action, price action since we reopened yesterday. We just kind of drifted lower and we're almost flat. We're down 20 points, but almost flat. You know, we're down 20 points off of that close, but we're actually not, haven't really gone anywhere as of the reopen on Sunday night. If you didn't know, futures open 6 p.m. Eastern on Sunday evening and just kind of start going. So we didn't really go anywhere at all. NASDAQ not providing clarity either on the futures there. Now, this could be that A wave, B wave, and we'll be working on the C wave like I was talking about for S&P cash. We did make that higher, that move higher. So was that the end of the fifth? Like, was that a 4 or 5? Or was that an A, B? And now we're working on the C. So we have a little bit of differential between the S&P cash chart and the futures charts. Awesome, right? Love it when there's no clarity in the market. So Russell here, first move down, retrace, lower high. This looks like we could easily get some continuation right down here. If we get that down in the, possibly even a 618 retrace of that move up we did back here in April, May, we get a 618 retrace of that, I will probably book out that September short. We will likely find some support here, bounce up again, and then go down for the bigger move, if that's what's going to play out in Russell. Oil, we're seeing this actually finally made a lower low and then rallying strongly, even though OPEC said they were going to raise output and Russia protesting, Russia saying that's not a great idea. So we're looking for this to break out above this high right there. And get above that high, probably going to see this come on up to that daily roadmap line area around the 73, 74 area, 72 area. Drop, please. Oh, helps if I turn it on. Yeah, so it's all the way down here. Test that and then get to that downtrend highs. Save that. Gold took a little turn higher here this morning, but this is probably a 4 or 5. Probably still the B wave top. Still expect the same path. A, B, and then the little baby 1, 2, 3, 4, and probably wrapping this up here with a 5th. Now, if we break out above that high, it's possible that this 3 wave was it. And we could be rallying on higher. That's low likelihood, though, based on the extension of this move. But we can keep extending. 5th waves can keep extending and keep extending and keep extending. I do expect this, but it may not be what we get. And gold miners coming up right back to the top again very quickly. So a strong move on gold miners right there. Bitcoin continuing its trudge. Retest. So far, it's holding that high pretty darn well. Holding that breakout. Look at the cash index here. Oh, we got to turn off the drawing tool. Look at the cash index here. Still grinding in here. I would love this to just pop right down in this area right here, because that sets up, if we do that, it sets up those bigger targets to be very easily attainable. If we just hold here and pop up again, especially if we stop in the $15,000 to $20,000 zone, that really calls into question whether we can get some extensions higher. Now, fundamentally, as far as Bitcoin goes, there's no like earnings, there's no any of that stuff. There's no corporate, there's no centralized control at all. But every big, I read an interesting article last night that was saying that these big flushes we've been getting are on purpose. They're purposely pushing price down like that. They being ETFs and big banks manipulating the price through futures and stuff like that to try to get individual holders to freak out and sell their Bitcoin. We have two entities that are trying to have more than 1 million Bitcoins under management by the end of 2025. Now, when you go look at the Bitcoin treasuries right here, and we dig down in here, the closest one we have has 580,000. So that means they're going to soak up some pretty good chunk of supply. And we have these right here, 164,000, 100,000, 198,000, 190,000. These are the public entities out here holding Bitcoin. See, and potentially two of these entities going to try to soak up enough Bitcoin to have 1 million Bitcoins. What do they got to do to be able to free up that Bitcoin? They got to freak out people so they want to sell. Now, looking at the custodian solutions here, you can see that iShares Bitcoin Trust has 660,000 Bitcoins here. Fidelity, 200,000. Grayscale, 187,000. They've dropped to number 3 now. They used to be number 1. We're seeing these exchanges down here. The liquidity on the exchanges has dropped out. So could this create a dynamic where Bitcoin will be crazy higher? Maybe. This might be a strategy where you want to hold some, like if you're going to trade some for that pop, trade it, great. But you may want to accumulate your Bitcoin. Maybe they take it into crypto winter, cause the bigger down, freak people out, and that's actually where you want to accumulate before we take the next big run higher. They're not playing the short-term game. You can only stay solvent so long, but just be careful out there. We're seeing Ethereum coming back down into the roadmap line. This may push lower down to that vicinity. NKD, we need to keep a red alert eye on this one. If we get below this low back here, probably going to have a big US market freak out right there. Probably going to happen. Dollar just churning right here above that 618 zone. Not really going higher, not really going lower. Back to that low. If we push below that low we made, and we did step a toe across, but if we get a close down there, this is almost definitely going lower than what we had right back here a couple weeks ago. Back in April, a month ago now. Probably almost certainly going lower than we did back in April. Maybe even going down to that mid 90s price that I've been talking about for freaking forever. Seems like freaking forever. All right, Mag 7 stuff. How we cooking? Apple still looking weak. We could see a little pop here, but this has a echo type setup for a big drop. All right, there's a measured bounce setup. We're going to see this across Mag 7s. I talk about this quite a bit. Amazon has the same setup. We went higher and actually tested the 618, and then now we've made a move down and a retrace and holding in that zone. This is very dangerous for another leg down right there. Very dangerous in the chart. Google has the same setup. I was selling puts like crazy on Google because it was bullish down here. Now we have this setup where we could get a bigger flush. So I'm back off of that, waiting for clarity on the situation. Meta has the same potential setup. Microsoft is the only one that has a different path going on because it already did this echo correction back here. Got a little extra excited on the downside. Now we're back up here above the top of the consolidations. Looks like we could push this on up 489, 500 on the upside. How long is that going to take? I don't know. If we get a big market pullback, this could pull this back down to this daily roadmap line and then rally on up later summer into the fall, potentially. Nvidia popped up, but has the same exact freaking setup here. Big move down, big sharp retrace, sitting at, even though it pushed the limits of that consolidation, sitting in that consolidation, potential to flush this on down. Just big market echoes, and I've got this target that's been down here for like a year now. Tesla, unfortunately, also has the same setup. We are now in June. Lots of hype around their new product launch. It's not really a new car or new anything. It's a new use for their car. And it's kind of funny. People are like, oh, they don't even have any Cybercabs on the road. And then next thing you know, they're going to have 10. And then next thing you know, oh, just 10 when Waymo has 1,000. Well, then they enable 1,000. It's like, oh, big deal. You know, they said they were going to have 1 million on the road. And then next thing you know, they have 1 million on the road. So watch that right there. Metals are flying. You need to be very specific about metals flying. That one's not flying. That one's not really going anywhere either. That one hasn't really gone anywhere either. It's actually pulling back already. So silver, not really even breaking out. Just at the top of its consolidation. So got to be careful when you say metals are breaking or metals are running. Lira, that's a ridiculous chart right there. Reverse split 50 for 1. So you had 100 shares last week. Now you got 2. That's a dumpster fire. Be careful right there. Say precious. BPMC. When medical stuff takes over the list, it's a day to be very cautious. Very cautious. Steel Dynamics. Ridiculous pop here. Be careful there too. That's a major resistance. If it holds that, can come right back down. Now this was a breakout, a retest. If we can actually manage the close above this high, this could set up for a breakout. It's potential. I'm very cautious about this. I've seen plenty of them fail. That high, that low. We could be setting up for a move up in this area right here, where that confluence of fib lines comes together. But we're going to have to get that close above that prior high there. Set that up. It's got to thread the needle on this one to get that move higher on Steel Dynamics. X being crazy. That Nippon Steel deal. Suppose the U.S. government's going to get like a 40% stake or something like that. Some ridiculousness. NUE, resistance right there, BNTX, more biotech stuff. This is a potential to pop right here, but then bigger picture, move up, retrace, further decline. Vera pushing down, but then popped up to the roadmap line. Biotech dominating the charts this morning. This gives me a lot of caution. More biotech, more biotech, more biotech. Till brother, no, another biotech. I don't remember what I was thinking. GLD. Like I said, that can be a B wave top. We're just slightly higher than we were a couple days back. Just slightly. And this sets up the bigger down, as I talked about on the GC chart already. That's move up. Watch out. AVAV. Sitting there at that resistance from the prior high. If that one can break up, we could see that move higher. 262 on the upside there. Boil. It's just natural gas. Moving up. But we've got a double top. We've got, that's not very clear, but we may see this pop on up in this area right here the next couple days. Oil is ultra. That's a leveraged natural gas. May see that pop into that area right there. Ugly. Back to back where it was. Be careful. This needs a bigger correction. Just saying. And we do have a split plan for ugly, 4 for 1. GDXU, shiny. That's a 3x leverage. Core weave. Keeps being crazy. CMC. Commercial Metals Company. Let's clear that chart up. So we had a correction. We bottomed out in the, potentially this was a, without going into it too much, this was a potentially 4 right there. This was potential 5 right here. And this potentially a 2. And if we can break back above this area right here, potentially start us on the next leg higher. Zooming out, looking at the bigger picture here. Feel a little bit better. I'm not 100% yet, but look at the bigger picture here. This potentially a 1, 2, 1, 2. Bottom 2, 2. Very shallow potential, but this could push this on up. Next move up in that vicinity right there, 222. It'd be pretty strong on something that's $50 right now. Potential 4x higher. And we'll probably see some bumps and humps along the way. This next move up, retrace, extension, something like that would be more like what I expect it to do. Up into that vicinity right there. UNH potentially making, and that just, we're just churning in here before we make a final play for the bottom. Needs one more flush out to really wrap this baby up. We can come all the way up here back to 450 and still come back down to 200. So some volatility out there. JNUG popping, more biotech popping, BA is going for an extension. Extension 232 up here. Potential to rally that. But also, if we get that bigger market pullback, we may come back to the roadmap line. That would be a beautiful thing. Potentially even touching that 162 price down here. I would love to see that. If we do that and hold right there, opportunity for that bigger, that's like probably your last $100 price range opportunity before we do the bigger pop. Bigger pop I've been talking about, cooking in the charts for a while on Boeing. We'll be talking about something up here in this price range. And then even higher, 600, 700. Century Aluminum. Here's the high, here's the low. We're at that resistance. If we can get the close above here, then we have this resistance we need to also clear. And a close above the 618 is like the first thing we need. Then we need to confirm by getting up to that resistance there. Could set us up for 27 on the upside for that chart. USO coming up, roadmap line, AEM coming back up strongly. Can't remember the new Barrick ticker. Just B. Easy, right? So watch out for this one to turn down here. We're filling the gap. We may get a rejection off of that gap fill. So watch out right there. We could get a violent reaction negative off that gap fill. Now, if we can maintain it and get a close just a bit higher than the gap fill, sets up the potential for this to rally on up to 2156 up here. If you didn't know, they changed their ticker from gold to B right there. And then Ashanti Gold. That one's actually pushing new highs today. So GDXU coming up strongly, not at a new high, despite GDX actually pushing a new high now. Nice. Win. Watch out for that. I'm mostly off gold, waiting for clarity on the correction. XOP. If you're a long-term gold bug, this correction, no big deal. We're going higher eventually, much higher. That's kind of funny. We're seeing oil push higher, but oil and gas exploration and products push lower potentially. LABU, 3X on biotech. Despite all those biotechs making the list today, this looks like we're going to push lower again. This one does decline over time quite severely. XME, nice little pop. Potential for this to be done on the downside here. Push on up to 74. There's this Shantae, WPM, wheat and precious metals. That one's really rocking. Watch for next extension up to 98. Potential there. COP. Watch for this to flush on down. Just can't get out of its own way here. XOM. And looks like lower. CVX. Looks like lower. And yellow. Came up into resistance. Not great on oil and refiner. This one is going to come back down. Look at that price we had last week. Already down to 48. Probably going to come back down to single digits. Be careful. It's got reverse splits galore. Danger, 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 danger. Flutter Entertainment. Hitting resistance. Can't get out of its own way here. Looks like that move, that move. And we're hitting the 618 here. Could be very much like the Mag 7s where we have a move down and we might get another move down. Something like that. That high, that low. Something like that. ETHU. Ethereum pulling back. This one leverage pull back. Watch for that to drop back down. Maybe hold a 618 before we see the next extension higher. Oklo, that's not even a big deal right there. Probably was down further pre-market, but this is probably going to go on up to 67.50. Google, we already talked about. Cold. It's an ultra short on Bloomberg. When we get natural gas popping, this is dropping, and that looks like, let's just clean this chart up. I think this chart's done for now. Probably going lower low. Hitting that 618 here. Probably gonna take a big spill down. Life 360. They bought, what is it, the Isle. Crazy right here. This is a Life 360 is like a helicopter parent's dream app right there, and keep track of your kids and where they are and what they're doing. That's resistance, and we may see a pullback. CLS, I would expect that to come on up to 164. NBIS, struggling to get through that zone there. Got resistance on up here, lower highs cooking. A-Lab, resistance right there, very similar to Mag 7 stuff. And Reddit, resistance. Ooh. If I can push on up into that roadmap line, I'm going to get off those shares I bought. The one setup we had today, let's turn this back on. Apollo. Yeah, there we go. Let's had this big pullback, rally up, close there, set up the entry today, and 253 on the upside. Look at the statistics down here. We got 50 trades, 74. It's just an average. It runs a little bit better than average on the profit factor. Very average trade. Looks like that will be the time frame. If you don't want to run out of time on this, you're gonna have to plan for about 220 days. And 99% of the time, we should be done with this pattern in 220 days. The average is 45 days. The average trade should go 45 days. One standard deviation is 35 days. So you can quickly see when you add up to 3 standard deviations to get into the 99%, quickly adds up to 220 days right there. So it could go quick. There you go. Beautiful price pattern right there. Very nice. And the last one did fail back here. The one before that worked out pretty quickly. They can go fast, they can go slow. This one, historically, doesn't give me a... That's interesting. Doesn't have the time frame on here anymore. Interesting. Trade analysis. Average winning trade, average longest winning trade, or largest. Gosh, alerts. Thank you. Average bars 56 right there. So this one, the average trade here lasts a little bit longer. Alrighty. Bias for the day. What do we expect to happen? Unfortunately, probably more correction is going to take place. Now, today, I don't know if we drop out today, but we're probably going to have downward pressure for the next couple of weeks. Certainly, we might make it to the daily roadmap line in the coming day or two. So then we could see a rally for a few days before the next down takes place. So that's what we got cooking right here on the charts. Hope you have a great day. I'll be back again tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel, 9:15. We'll do it all over again. Hunt for stuff moving. I'll be in Discord if you want to come hang out, and let me know if you need something.